Alright, so I was just kind of minding my own business when out of the blue we got some crazy new information about the Next Doors update. Now, unfortunately, this isn't anything too wild, like a brand new feature being revealed, kind of like how we got the journal teaser last week. No, what we got is a lot more abstract, as instead of being a new feature, it's a sign that the next update is coming pretty soon. In fact, if you recall, a couple days ago, I predicted this update would come out in February this month, and this new information just further supports that. So, in today's video, I'm going to be going over what exactly was revealed to us, and what it means for the update as well as its release day. This information is rather important, so with all of that being said, let's begin. Alright, so as of recording this video, two major things happened recently. Events which most of you probably aren't even aware of. In fact, I wasn't even aware of these until someone let me know. The first is the creation of a brand new badge. Now, as expected, no information about this badge was revealed other than its existence, unfortunately. If there was more information, I'd be going a lot more crazy, but as I said, there isn't. However, the existence of this badge does act as a good sign that the next update is nearing completion, as badges are typically only created right before an update releases. This also means the next update will have at least one new achievement for us to get, which I guess is kinda cool. It's always good to collect achievements. I will say though, it is a little odd how early this badge has been created, as typically all new badges release at the same time as an update comes out. There really isn't much else to say about this though, so let's discuss the next major reveal that was brought to my attention. Essentially, according to this Doors news source, which I think is pretty reliable, the Doors testing place was updated a whopping 40 times recently. Now, for those unaware, prior to a public update release, the update is pushed to this testing game that only official testers and the developers have access to. This is so they can actually test the game in secrecy without the public knowing at all about the new content. However, players can still track when this testing place actually updates, meaning we can essentially see when the developers are adding new stuff or changing features inside of the game, even though we don't know what exactly is being changed or added. Based on this, like I said, the place was updated 40 times recently, and that means a bunch of playable content is now in the testing phases, resulting in it being very close to actually releasing. I wouldn't be surprised if these features are being tested as I speak, and that means this content is very close to being released to the public. Now, I think I've made it pretty obvious how both of these events, the new badge being created and the testing place being recently updated, all point to the Next Doors update coming relatively soon, perhaps even later this month. However, as I was sifting through this new information, I came to a rather odd realization. As you probably know by now, the next major Doors update is going to completely overhaul the room's subfloor, turning it into a completely new location known as the Archives. The Archives update was always kind of just assumed to release next, given how its development is nearly finished. However, looking back on this, we may be getting a batch before this major update, which could be a little disappointing to some, but I think it's fine. Now, I may later come to eat my words if the Archives are announced as the next update and not a batch, but I think that there's a somewhat decent chance that the next update will in fact be a batch and not the room's overhaul like we've expected. Let me explain why I think that though. Essentially, with most major updates, comes a whole bunch of new badges. As I had previously described, only one single badge was documented as being created right now, which is more in line with how many achievements release in batch updates. The Christmas event only added 2 new badges, and one of them was only released through the same method where we could actually track it before the update actually came out. Now, it's always possible feature badges release at the same time when the update arrives. That's happened a lot in the past. But it is rather odd how only a single one was created early, that we are able to track at least. I don't know, maybe I'm rambling, but it definitely is rather strange. Although, with that being said, I do want to explore the possibility that the next update is a batch, and not the major Archives release like we have been expecting. What would even be in this hypothetical next batch? And do we have any information about it at all? Well, I actually think we do, so let's get on to that. Now, as you may have known, the whole gimmick of batches is that they take extra unrelated content from major updates and push them early for us to experience. The developers aren't actually putting in any more work, they're putting in the same amount of work as they always have, we're just experiencing content earlier. The last official teaser we received for the next update is the Journal, a logbook that documents every entity in the entire game, and it provides unique lore insight for us theorists, so I am definitely excited for this feature. The logbook, functionality-wise, is completely separate from the archives, so it's pretty possible a hypothetical next batch could just be focused on introducing this journal feature and not the archives at all. That could be saved for the next update. Now, of course, just adding a book wouldn't make for much of a fun update. Nobody wants to just play doors simply to read. So how would a journal-focused batch work gameplay-wise? Well, I do have an idea, and it involves the player essentially having to replay the entire game, every single floor and subfloor all over again. What I think will happen is that if the journal releases in a next potential batch rather than in the archives update, we'll have to interact with each and every entity again, and only then will we be able to document them in the journal. Just because we have escaped and interacted with all of the entities now doesn't mean that progress would transfer to the journal. So when this update arrives, its gameplay element could have us rediscovering every entity again, with the goal of documenting them this time. Now, that is just wild speculation, I don't really have any evidence for that claim, but if the journal were to release as its own separate batch, then I feel this route would probably be the best in terms of how it could be intertwined with actual gameplay, so it just wouldn't be us reading a book for like 5 hours or something. I also think it could be kind of fun to replay all the floors trying to find every entity. I think that could be pretty cool, and it will act as a test for all the skills we have learned thus far playing through the game all these years. So, just to summarize everything that's happened, a new badge was added to doors and the game's testing place was updated, implying that we'll be seeing the next update very soon. Like I said, it's probably going to come out this month, or at least some update will come out this month. Additionally, it's also possible that the very next update isn't that room's overhaul we've been expecting, but rather the batch solely focused on adding the journal, and that could have us replaying through all the floors trying to document each and every entity again, even though we already technically know all of them. So, with all of that being said, let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on all of this, as well as if you think the next update will be a batch or add the archives itself. I do actually hope it will add the room's overhaul, as I've been waiting for that for quite a while, but I wouldn't be mad if we just got a journal update or something like that. Anyways, thank you all for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.